You ever feel like reality makes enough sense, but just off to the side, right of the decimal, something bigger is going on? Over the next 11 videos, I'm inviting you into a journey, a series where we can explore a theory that reality isn't built on space and time, but vibration and imagination, and then that little known boundary called the Planck scale. Now, for the skeptics watching, I get it. This is gonna sound like science fiction. But I want you to remember, theories don't start with citations. They start with questions, with patterns, with the courage to wonder out loud. So if you're going to come up all Barney Fife on me and be disrespectful, and one of two things is going to happen. I'll either delete your comment or I'll show everyone your Barney Fife-ness and be respectful, be genuine, and I'll do my best to answer any legitimate questions. We'll talk entanglement. We'll talk DMT and lasers, tuning forks, low-dose THC, and non-linear thought, all grounded in a bigger question. What if consciousness is the real dimension we've been ignoring? This is going to sound weird, folks. I'm calling it right of the decimal because that's where reality hides when you stop looking. The decimal isn't detail, it's design. And physicists, I'm asking you to watch, not to agree, but to engage, to help shape this, challenge it, and sharpen it. I'll entertain you, I'll bend your assumptions, and we'll stitch metaphor into math, 1 minute at a time. Let the series begin. Part 1 drops soon, and this is Right of the Decimal. Have a great day, folks. Hey, give me a like and a follow, and I'd really appreciate it if you'd share this with some people, and let's get the conversation started. Have a great one. Bye-bye. Okay, everybody, let's start with the decimal. 3.14. You recognize that, right? Pi, circle, precision, but that number doesn't stop there. 3.141592653 and on. It just goes to infinity. And right of the decimal is where the real power hides. Not in the 3, not in the 4, but in the digits no one's talking about. In physics, this is where the Planck length lives. A number so small it ends form. You go beyond that, and that's where dimensional space itself collapses. That's not detail, that's design. What if consciousness works in the same way? What if the part of you that feels truth isn't in the obvious numbers? It's in the fine-tuned decimals no one can quite measure. This series is called Right of the Decimal for a reason, because that's where reality becomes resonance, where matter ends and meaning begins. So in the next episode, we're going to talk about the first dimension. And I'm going to challenge a textbook definition that's been maybe wrong for over 100 years. So stick around. This is where it starts to bend. Textbooks say that the first dimension is a line. One direction, no depth, just length. But here's the problem. A line already assumes space. And if there's space, there's distance. And if there's distance, there's time. So how can that be the first anything? Before you can measure anything, before direction, before motion, there needs to be awareness. Something that simply says, I am. And maybe that awareness wasn't yours. Maybe what we call the first dimension isn't a line at all. Maybe it's the voice behind the line, the architect, the one who observed before anything existed to be observed. Only after that can contrast appear. The second dimension, this and that, then comes the third, and then comes 4D, and then here we are, living downstream of the original awareness. So what if consciousness didn't emerge from the brain? What if your brain is just tuning into a much deeper frequency? We're not building reality from shapes. We're building it from observation. And the very first observation may still be observing through you. Next episode, we'll talk about a strange field that may still be whispering across the dimensions. And scientists can't measure it yet, but it's there. And we call it, well, the seraphim field. And you might already be feeling it. It's going to get out there, folks. Let's talk about something theoretical. It's called the seraphim field. And no, I'm not claiming it's proven. Just saying, look at what it might explain. Entanglement, where two particles share information instantly across space. How does that work if light has a speed limit? Well, maybe it doesn't happen through space. Maybe it happens around it. Imagine each dimension like a capsule, a pill. Inside that pill, all the rules, the gravity, the time, light, distance. But on the surface of that capsule is a field that touches every dimension at once. You can call it the quantum field, the 0-point field, the divine interface. For these purposes, I'll just call it the seraphim field. Not dogma, but as a symbol of something watching and whispering across dimensions. If the first dimension is awareness, and higher dimensions are frequencies of that awareness playing out, then this field might be a resonant skin connecting them all. Just a model, a placeholder, but when you realize that entangled particles respond faster than light, or that healing can happen spontaneously across space, or that imagination can pull in visions from timelines you've never lived, you have to ask, what's actually binding all of this together? Well, that's the seraphim field, not fact, but maybe a fingerprint. And in the next episode, we'll ask the question Einstein couldn't answer. What if faster than light isn't speed, it's structure? You want to see that? Okay, let's talk about one of the weirdest things in physics. It's called quantum entanglement. Einstein called it spooky action at a distance. And to be fair, he wasn't wrong. You take two particles, split them, send one to Jupiter, and keep one in your toaster. And when you measure one, the other one reacts instantly. Yep, I said it. No phone call, no carrier pigeon, no little photon whispering, "Hey, spin up." So what gives? Well, maybe they're not communicating at all. Maybe they're not even separate. What if entangled particles don't send information through space because they exist outside of it? Not faster than light, just not inside the speed limit. Imagine space like a game board. Most particles move along the grid. Entangled particles, well, They're like twins written into the same sentence. Change one word and the other word shifts automatically. And the thing about sentences, they actually exist outside of the page they're written on. We call that field, that layer, the seraphim field. But call it whatever you want. It's not about names, it's about structure. A deeper level of reality where space and time are optional. Still spooky? Sure. But maybe real magic isn't what they talk, is why they talk fast. It's that they never stop being the same thing. Next episode, we talk about the tiniest number in physics, the Planck length, and what happens when you try to go smaller than existence itself. You know how in video games sometimes you fall through the floor and the whole map glitches out? That's basically what happens when you try to go smaller than the Planck length. Planck length is about 1.6 times 10 to the 35th, negative 35th. And that is 34 zeros after the decimal, which means it's not just small, it's right of the decimal's final breath within that dimension. Now, physics will tell you that this is the limit where our math breaks down, but let's be real. That's like saying the calculator caught fire, so the universe must have stopped. But here's the twist. My brother-in-law, he's an electrodynamic particle physicist. He cracked something wild. Light doesn't start at the speed of light. It starts at 0. It accelerates, which means there's a moment before motion. A beat before light wakes up. Which means the Planck length might not be a ruler. It might be a trapdoor. The point where space ends and something other begins. You go below it and you're not measuring anymore. You're leaving. Leaving geometry, leaving time, possibly even leaving the contract we have with physical form. So, if you ever meet a physicist who tells you you can't go smaller than the Planck length, just smile and say, "Oh, I'm not going smaller. I'm going through." The next episode, we explore what happens when you keep going instead of collapsing. Reality fractures upward. Planck divergence. It gets weird really fast. Okay, folks. We're going to do something new here, so buckle up. Most people think if you go smaller than the Planck length, reality just collapses. Like the screen goes dark, the game over, simulation ended. But what if that's not what happens? What if going too deep, too right of the decimal, doesn't make you disappear? It makes you fracture. Introducing a concept I call Planck divergence. It's what happens when frequency meets resistance. And the structure above can't hold the charge. Like playing a note so loud that the glass doesn't absorb it, it shatters. This might explain why people spontaneously heal. Why they experience deja vu. Why some folks wake up feeling like they switched timelines. Not because they went backwards, but because something cracked forwards. See, each dimension has thresholds, length, time, structure, and if you cross those thresholds with too much resistance, the higher dimension doesn't kill the signal, it splits it. And you're left inside the echo. Some of us feel it, we feel it during trauma, others during spinal tuning, some during prayer, some during psychedelics. But the moment is the same. You felt something break, but not something around you moved. That's Planck divergence, a phase, a crack, a vertical scar in the dimensional stack. And in the next episode, we'll talk about how life begins in the fourth dimension as we know it, but how you might be learning to outgrow it. You ever wonder why so many quantum equations use the imaginary number I? It's not a typo. It's not a decoration. It's the curve, the dimensional bend between what's measurable and what's meaningful. In math, I is the square root of -1. Totally abstract, and yet it unlocks things. Wave functions, quantum spin, probability clouds. Without the I, the math falls apart. But here's the twist. Maybe I doesn't just belong in equations. Maybe it belongs in you. You ever notice how a microdose of THC or a tuning fork at just the right spot, or a song lyric that knows you before you even speak it? It suddenly makes your thoughts curve, right? Like you're not thinking linearly anymore. You're spiraling. That's the I curve. The moment your mind stops following the track and starts bending through it. Science calls it imaginary, and I call it entry-level dimensional literacy. And you felt it the moment where the math stopped and the music began. Next episode, what happens when the fourth dimension, time, isn't your container, but your launch pad? Let's talk about life, learning to outgrow time. My name is Doug. What if deja vu isn't memory glitching? It's memory overlapping. What if that time you suddenly felt like something changed, but couldn't explain it? It wasn't in your head. It was in your timeline. In physics, we talk about the Planck scale, the edge of measurable space. But what happens when you push past it? Not with a microscope, but with vibration, with resonance. There's a concept that I call Planck divergence. It's what happens when you oversaturate a dimensional boundary, and instead of collapsing, reality fractures upwards. You're not breaking space. You're creating a phase scar, a ripple across the stacks of dimensions. This might be why trauma stays locked in the body, why people spontaneously heal, why someone you've known for 10 years suddenly feels like a different version. Because resonance doesn't just shape sound, it shapes possibility. And when your body or your consciousness hits the right harmonic, you don't go back in time, you shift the track. That's Planck divergence. It's not time travel, it's dimensional tuning fork therapy. In the next episode, we'll zoom out to the fourth dimension. And I'll show you why life begins in the fourth dimension. But why you may be here to graduate from it. I think that's the best way to describe that. We live in the fourth dimension. And that's not spiritual fluff, that's just physics. 3 dimensions of space plus time. But what if time isn't how things move? What if time is why we're actually here? biological life, cells, memory, aging, growth, it all requires time. Without it, you can't experience entropy. You can't evolve. You can't even breathe. So maybe the fourth dimension is the entry point of carbon-based life. The classroom where spirit learns form, where potential gets sequenced. But you might be reaching the edge of the lesson. You ever feel like time isn't working right anymore? Like it bends, it loops, it stretches, or you can see it coming before it happens. That's not a malfunction. That's a graduation symptom. You're starting to interact with time in ways higher dimensions see it, as a coordinate, not a current. And once you stop being ruled by time, you start navigating reality from outside the schedule. And that's where tuning begins. That's where healing accelerates. That's where right of the decimal isn't just theory anymore. It's function. In the next episode, I'll show you how to actually begin tuning your awareness, chemically, physically, dimensionally. This is where the fun begins. Reality is stubborn until you learn how to curve it. And no, I'm not talking about tripping faces in the forest. I'm talking about a controlled, repeatable tuning method that uses a few key elements to slip right of the decimal. It's called the Curvature Activation Protocol. And yeah, it bends a few things. Your thought patterns, your sensory input, your timeline. Here's a simple stack. If it's legal where you are, 4 milligrams of THC or a low-dose disruptor. Now, I'm not trying to push anybody on drugs, but for some people, it helps. And other people, they don't even need it. And that's just fine. Deep breath priming. In through the nose, hold, and then a slow exhale through the mouth. And then a sound-based spinal resonance. So a tuning fork or speakers or actually headphones with binaural beats. You can try it. Observer release. Let your conscious mind watch instead of drive. You do that for 11 minutes or even however long you wish, and don't force insight. Just witness how thought starts to spiral instead of climb. And that's your curvature. That's your imaginary access. That's the I, I'll go back a few episodes, in your internal math. The system doesn't want you curving, it wants you cornered. Curved minds don't follow lines, and they redraw the map. In the next episode, we're going to talk about what happens after the curved dimensional migration. It's not fiction, it's fractal drift. Every theory has an endpoint, a final number, a decimal so fine that nothing comes after it, except maybe everything. Physicists call it the Planck length, 1.6 times 10 to the negative 35th, smaller than small, the breath between being and not. We call it the final breath. It's not where math ends, it's where imagination takes over. Because, here's the joke, the universe plays on us. The closer we get to precision, the less certain we become. You don't fall off the edge, you phase through it. Into sound, into signal, into self. That's where spinal tuning lives. That's where curvature activation begins. That's where God whispers instead of shouts. If you've made it through all 11 episodes, then you already feel it. The bend, the pull, the breath. You're not crazy, You're just listening with more than ears. Right of the decimal is just the beginning. Remember, right of the decimal is where infinity begins. Stick around. Possibly in the next series isn't theory, it's activation. Oh shit. Okay, I admit it. We may have just broken the entire dimensional model. It looks like this is going to have to go beyond 11 episodes, and apologize about that, but oh well. Because when I said the first dimension isn't a line, it's an I am, yeah, that creates just a small problem. If the first dimension is awareness without form, then where the hell do the lines and shapes and carbon-based life form come from? Well, welcome to the paradox. You see, most models say dimension 1 is a line, dimension 2 is a plane, dimension 3 is volume, and the fourth dimension is time. But if you start out at awareness, not geometry, you don't move in straight lines anymore. You move in relation, in recursion, in the curvature. So here's the workaround. The first dimension isn't a physical place. It's a spark, the observer, the original point on the map before the map exists. The second dimension, that's awareness with contrast. I am, not that. Now we can measure. Now we get polarity. The third dimension, it's awareness folding into context. And now we see reflection. Now there's me and you. But the fourth dimension, that's the payoff. That's where time starts tickling tissue, where biology starts dancing with entropy, where carbon forms carnal. So yeah, it's a bit of a paradox. We don't start with math, we start with meaning. And somehow, from that flicker I am, we end up with blood pressure and broken hearts. That's not a contradiction, that's divine recursion. And it lives right of the decimal. Have you ever wondered how I am turns into I bleed? How something as subtle as awareness becomes a physical body with bones and breath and heartbreak? It doesn't happen in a straight line. It happens in a spiral. Enter the Fibonacci sequence, nature's favorite cheat code. 0, 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, where each number is the sum of the two before it, just like memory. Yourself is a spiral. You are the sum of what you were and what you just became. But here's what most people miss. That spiral, it never loops. It never crosses the same line twice. It curves forever, tighter, then wider, faster, and still, just like breath, just like grief, just like growth. The spiral shows up everywhere. Pine cones, galaxies, DNA, and yeah, in your spine. Now think of this. The Fibonacci curve is driven by a number that never ends, phi, 1.680033, I think, and so on, which means spiral is perfectly ordered and never done evolving. So maybe this isn't just math. Maybe it's sacred memory engine, a curved bridge between awareness and biology. Maybe it's how the divine learns how to walk. And that spiral lives right of the decimal. Okay, if you're not familiar with Walter Russell, let me give you the Cliff Notes. He was a mystic scientist who said the whole universe is just light spiraling inward. and outward in a rhythm, basically God's breath. He didn't see atoms as little billiard balls. He saw them as wave fields, spheres of pressure, spiraling from stillness back to stillness. And here's where it gets fun. That spiral he saw in nature, it's not random. It's right of the decimal. The golden ratio, phi, Fibonacci, it's all in there. Russell said that matter is light, slowed down. I'd add, and memory is light curled into meaning. That spiral, it never repeats. It spins through the toroid, a shape similar like a donut made in motion. And that toroid is a I am, because I remember. Russell wave models explain why the universe breathes right of the decimal. Now that breath becomes form. This isn't mysticism, it's precision masquerading as poetry, and it's all encoded right of the decimal. Let me ask you something wild. What if your brain wasn't generating your thoughts? It was slowing them down. This is a theory. It's being looked at right now. And if you think about it, you dream in color, you imagine whole worlds with zero effort. But when you wake up, reality kicks in. Form, time, physics, pain. What happened? The light got curved. It got filtered through your nervous system and bent by your beliefs and decelerated into matter. Your brain doesn't create consciousness. It filters it. It blends the infinite light into the finite form. It's a dimmer switch. And guess what? That's not just a metaphor. It's right of the decimal. See? Right of the decimal is where the infinite digits live. The subtle code, the nuance, the vibration, the imaginary dimension of numbers. It's where music lives. And guess who else believes in curved light becoming form? Walter Russell, David Bohm, even Tesla nodded towards it. Russell said that matter is light spiraling inward and outward. Bohm said that reality unfolds from an implicit order in a hidden field of knowing. And now we're saying that fields live right of the decimal and your brain is the decoder. You are not in your body and your body is in you. So if things feel a bit heavy, maybe it's not you. Maybe the dimmer just got a little turned down too low. You know, it's time to bring this home. And I know what some of you are thinking. All this right of the decimal stuff sounds fascinating, but what the hell am I supposed to do with it anyway? Well, here's the answer. You tune it. You experience it. And yeah, you confront it, but in a safe, controlled environment. You don't just think about resonance, you become resonant. So let me break it down. Imagine your body is like a guitar. Every emotion, trauma, belief, it creates tension on the strings. And most people, well, they're walking around completely out of tune, wondering why they can't manifest, can't focus, they can't feel clear. And that's where spinal tuning comes in. I use weighted tuning forks not to treat, but to introduce sound into the brain and nervous system. And let the brain start remapping the stress within it. It's like playing a C note and asking the body, are you in pitch or tune with the truth? Because most people, they're not tuned to the same reality. And when the brain hears itself clearly, it starts telling the truth. Not the story, not the trauma loop, the raw signal underneath. And once that internal map is honest, the body starts unwinding, but only if your conscious mind gets out of the way. This isn't woo-woo, it's cymatics. This is frequency meaning fascia. This is right of the decimal made real. And I've seen people walk in with decades of pent-up chronic stress reactions, only to walk out knowing what true freedom actually is for the first time in a long time. I've had patients cry without knowing why because their emotions finally found its exit. And I didn't cause that, they did, when their body heard itself again. Because when you tune your body and nervous system to the correct pitch, soul gets brave and finally lets go as it's been wanting to do for years. My name is Dr. Chad Rolfson, and I'm a spinal tunist. And, well, ask your chiropractor about me. They might not know me, but they might want to. So give me a like and a follow, and please share this with somebody who might find it interesting. Start the conversation. Have a great day, folks.